Welcome back to the My Inner Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Laura Ferry. Today's episode is one that I know is going to land deeply for you. I'm joined by Pamela Tosh. She's a yoga teacher, energy healer, and truly powerful guide joining us all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. Pamela has this incredible ability to help people reconnect with their bodies, their intuition, and the parts of themselves they've silenced for too long. In this conversation, we explore what it really means to speak your truth, not the polished version you think people want to hear, but the truth your soul keeps whispering when you're quieted enough to listen. If you've been feeling called to step into your voice, honor your inner knowing, or show up more authentically in your relationships, your life, this episode is for you. So when you're ready, grab a cup of coffee and come get uncomfortable with me. Hi, Pamela. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Laura. I'm very excited to share my story with your listeners.
Yeah. So why don't we jump right into it? Do you want to explain to everyone what it is that you do?
Absolutely. Well, let me just elaborate on where I am in the world as well. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. We're going into our summer here and our crazy, silly festive season. I have a nonprofit organization which has taken over my life in the last 6 months.
I can only imagine.
It's actually been a scapegoat for me. Feel like the nonprofit organization is a way for me to really tap into my divine feminine energy and be authentic to who I am as a 50-year-old woman, a woman who has had 2 marriages and 2 divorces, a daughter who I had to let go of at a young age because she married her life partner. Well, she met him when she was 14. They lived together at an early age. So I find myself in the middle of this rebirthing period of my life, not just because of all the body changes that I'm experiencing, but because I have tried to walk in truth for so long that I'm really starting to see the distortion of masculine and feminine.
Okay. Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit because this is something that is new to me and I'm discovering about myself too, about staying in my femininity and how I've been in my masculine for so long. Tell me about what you're experiencing or anything that you want to share.
I'm not sure if it's just because of where I am in the world, but when we look at the roles of men and women in relationships and then going into marriage and long-term relationships, having children, I can understand now that it's so important for as individuals and as couples to do the foundation work. Both times before I got married, there was an opportunity to go and have the right kind of counseling at the church or with a pastor or with friends in a group. And it didn't really seem to hit the right points because I came out of those relationships and marriages completely broken and still not knowing who I was. In 2013, before my second marriage, I went to India and I did a yoga teacher training course. It was to rehabilitate myself initially. I didn't really think that I would ever go into teaching, but I understood I needed to separate from my current environment, which was toxic. I was running my own public relations company and it was launches and events all the time. So it lent itself to, you know, alcohol and one thing leads to another and all of a sudden there's a space of roller coaster of relationships and car accidents and shame, just carrying unimaginable shame. But I think I was already an angry teenager taking that into my teens and then having my daughter, unfortunately, losing her father when I was 2 months pregnant and really not being understood throughout the pregnancy as well.
Uh-huh.
So when we come back again to what I thought the role of the partner was, it was just distorted because of the conditioning. I think a lot of women can be breadwinners if the men are emotionally mature to
Yeah,
understand that
yeah.
dynamic.
That makes sense. That makes sense because by nature, they are the providers, right? And when we are defying that logic, I think it makes everyone kind of question. You just need to have someone strong enough, to be in that role. I totally agree with you. And I find
Yeah,
myself
I mean,
interesting because,
yeah.
yeah, like, yeah, keep going because I don't want to interrupt you. There's so many things that I could say about that I'm just discovering myself
Well,
right now.
we really want that masculinity, but the men are not doing the healing work either. There's so many more women fighting to break down the walls and the change and the misconceptions. So having done the yoga teacher training and meeting men, trying to present my most authentic self, kind and loving and compassionate and nurturing, is not for them to see me as a mother role, really. It's to kind of mirror that strength back to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
But unfortunately, I'm met with defense time and time again. And when I need to speak my truth, I no doubt fall back into the spiritual lessons. It's not to be perfectionist. It's not to be better than anybody else. But I've had an experience not out of a textbook and nothing that I've read and then applied. I went to India with no expectation and I got sucked into working on the streets because there was a horrific flood. It was the worst in 88 years. It took over the northern region of India into the Himalayas. When the Ganga River was overflowing, it was bringing villages on the side of the banks down with it, cows, trees, you can name it. And I was activated into service. I did get married again in 2014 after that experience. And when I think back now, it was so crucial that that had to happen because it provided me with the support, financial support, to be able to let go of 3D reality, let go of the matrix, and completely submerge into the spiritual journey. So I have been blessed to be able to do that. I mean, listening to your recent podcast about going to the gym and focusing on exercise. Well, for me, it was completely different. That was automatic in the ashram because I was living according to their schedule for 6 weeks. The food was being provided for me. I was just walking into class and I was doing the work.
Right. Yeah.
And so the spiritual activation kind of starts happening immediately because you're being encouraged to filter everything out the mind, not think about yourself. And I embodied that.
Right.
When the floods came, I went out onto the street. I started serving in whatever capacity I could. I didn't say no and I didn't challenge it. I cried my eyes out. I had days when I felt extremely lonely and lost and was wondering, am I going crazy? But for some reason, that inner voice just said to me, keep doing what you're doing. It was liberating, and I did have an enlightening experience. I looked at myself in a video that a French cameraman did for me. It was one morning he followed me from about 10 till 12, 1 o'clock, and he captured the most beautiful moments in a 3-minute video that is currently on YouTube still. And when I saw that, and when I show a lot of people that still, it's very emotional. I started crying and I realized what other people were seeing. And I realized who I was as a woman, how important women are, that mother role, and that we can step into that Christ like, the embodiment of that frequency, and we can live through that. And then we don't have to worry about how we feel about ourselves and if we have too much weight on our bodies or dark circles under our eyes. For some reason, we have this magnificent resource within us that we're not tapping into.
Mhm.
And if you look at the physical features of me over the years, especially on my Facebook, you'll see how I've changed. I've lost so much weight in a good way. I'm feeling strong as a 50-year-old. I am concerned about paresthesia on the left side. I think it is from the last recent toxic narcissistic relationship I've come out of, where I feel like I've had the biggest lesson of my life, because you think it can never happen to me after all the experiences I've had now.
That's
But
interesting. So all that work that you did in that time and you were obviously fortunate to be able to go and do that and not have to worry about, surviving, behind you, what you were leaving behind in that moment. Does that have a lot to do with the nonprofit work that you're doing now? What do they tie together?
absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, I haven't had the amount of support that I would have thought from men or from women that I know. And I've got a very big circle here in Cape Town. It extends to various music festivals across our Western Cape in different genres of music, DJs, their friends, and it's a wonderful creative network. But we're still not seemingly coming together to do the humanitarian work together. Earth Dance is a fantastic example because we have Earth Dance once a year where the whole world unites and it says a prayer. But our Earth Dance was unfortunately due to storms 2 years ago, didn't happen. It didn't happen last year. And what happened this year was just a reminder, really, that we need to stay connected. There's a message that we are not sharing with one another about where this authenticity is coming from and how to sustain it because it isn't external. There's so many people looking for validation and acknowledgement and competing with one another and comparing one another, especially when it comes to my journey. It is unique. And I'm not trying to be better. I'm trying to invite people into that circle. I've tried it particularly with partners, with men, because I thought that is what I really needed. But I think my ego was kind of clawing on my conscience because of my conditioning. So
Okay.
in this process, there's been a lot of inner child work to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be great to find a
It's
partner to do that with.
right. And there's a certain amount of growing that you do on your own and then also in a relationship, right? So all of that stuff, I went through that a few years ago and it was enlightening and without a doubt had my own spiritual awakening. Um, and it was unbelievable. It's really hard to describe. I know I'm sure that you've experienced something just in all the work that you've done, similar to where I like what you just said too, like how we're giving of ourselves and then we forget about all that bullshit that doesn't really matter anymore, right? That, the status or the clothes or the exterior view that everyone has because you're so wrapped up in helping create a better world, essentially. Um, that all of those external factors don't really matter. And it's really great to be wrapped up in something like that. I like the fact that now in my life, in this circle that I have, like I'm not so concerned with that anymore. Like I'm on here like authentically me. This is what I'm wearing
Yeah.
today. Not I didn't change anything to be here to have this conversation because this is where I'm at. And 5 years ago, I probably would have, without a doubt, changed whatever it was, so that I had this outward different appearance. And there are still some instances where I need to do that, if I'm networking or things like that. But like
Mm.
my everyday people, my clients, these women that I work with accept me for who I am. And it doesn't really matter how I show up. Oftentimes I
Absolutely.
have clients that I work with very closely. They'll just come here to my house to work in my office and I'm in my slippers and, what it doesn't really matter, because I am authentically myself. And similarly to you and your work, you have been working on being authentically who you are. And then as you meet people or try to, we talk about the dating thing or being in a relationship with someone, and just authentically showing up as yourself is it's different, but it's hard when someone, maybe I'm 44, I just turned 44. There are people beyond our years that still have no idea who they are, and it's a shame because you're missing that good spot about living your life like exactly who you are. So in all of this work, when you decided to, take these steps or these leaps of, to go and try your yoga training and all of that, was that a big moment for your own self discovery? Like how deep could you go and like in these types of places? Because as you said, everything is being taken care of for you. So there's so much that you don't have to think about. You can just
Yes.
be in the present moment. Of course, initially you might be worried about things at home or what's happening or but you're at a different point in your life where you can just center and focus on that. Not everybody has that
Mm.
opportunity right now, right? So what was that like for you being able to just really focus on that growth or that present moment?
Yes, it was like feeling myself for the first time. I think if nobody has traveled and they are in any kind of monotonous mundane or consistent lifestyle, it will firstly show. And it definitely means it's time to pack up and go on, take yourself on an
Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah.
I have always been creative and I've always had my faith or religion, to fall back on. But I was stupidly and naively thinking that every Indian in India does yoga and every Indian is spiritual. So I really didn't know what I was getting myself in for. But I'm also very
I get
independent.
that. I can understand the analogy. Do you think that like where you are physically, so you're in Cape Town, Africa, and I'm here in the States, and I feel like there's this constant need for people, vacations or traveling is not something that your average person builds into their normal life, right? And it's huge generalization. I think that many people here are taking vacations to escape the life that they're living, right? And so when I stepped away from my full-time job 3 years ago and I decided to go into this full force and really make something of it, I wanted a life that I didn't feel like I needed to escape from. So in the last few years, and of course, building a business is really hard. There was definitely a ton of financial struggle and trying to keep it together and keep pushing yourself because this is not, it's hard, obviously. But my goal was to build a life I didn't feel like I needed to escape from. And I think I finally found that when we leave our bubble of where we are, it allows us to explore so many other parts of ourselves. Forget about the location, of wherever we are, but it allows us to be vulnerable in another place, right? And then we can integrate that back into our life. And so I've done a ton of traveling this year and saw so many places, but I've discovered so much about myself. And every time I step outside the bubble, I come back different. And I've written that for years in my blog. I wrote it in my book that I always wanted to go away somewhere and come back different. And here I
It's,
fucking am. It's like
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
incredible. I just took an unexpected weekend away with a friend of mine that I really had no business to be like going away. And it didn't cost me like a dime, literally, because I was tagging along on something. It was a car ride. We brought all our food and we cooked, and it was awesome. So I'm doing everything that I can within my current circumstances to keep stepping outside of my bubble. And I think that's really important.
We have to challenge ourselves. We have to keep moving as we get older. That's so important. I obviously found myself in precarious situations more than once. Being the person that I am as well, I was doing my spiritual, devotional, and karma yoga on the streets in Rishikesh. And then I was going to Goa and I was practicing the healing work with travelers from all over the world. And at that stage, there were a lot of Russians, Ukrainians, Jewish people, Germans, Swedish, you name it. That was before lockdown. So that also gave me an opportunity to work with the energy medicine, understand what was from the divine source. And again, the Shakti energy medicine was quite powerful. A little bit of research into the different incantations of the divine feminine, because Durga being the first one has 9. The Hindu festivals were significant, not just because they were beautiful and I was filling my mind and my body with the mantras and the frequencies, but there is a festival called Navratri, and every time I was traveling, it just seemed to land on the days of that festival. And for 9 days, we just love ourselves. And I know that a lot of us have to give ourselves time off once a month, but I think that we're missing the point as women to be more loving and nurturing and sensitive. And we're not giving ourselves that opportunity because of either the lack mentality, or we're being forced to be breadwinners, or we're only the only parent in the household. And it's so unfortunately that we still can't be friends with our counterparts. Well, a lot of us can't. We can't come to some kind of a equilibrium with our partners so that we can just be whole and live our lives without animosity.
Mhm. I think I think there's really something to that. Like living, I think when you're in the thick of it and you have a partner and there's children and it's like a pressure cooker, right? And there's so much that you have to get done in a certain amount of time and outside influence and obligations and all of that. But if you can't carve out time for yourself and, you're judged by other people and there's so many factors that come into it, all the pressure that surrounds, maintaining all of all of everything and you're constantly juggling all of these things. It's really hard to take time out. But as women, especially, and men do too, men need to take time out for themselves too and have an opportunity to work on themselves and really get to know themselves and heal those parts because most of us are walking around with these unhealed versions of ourselves from childhood that really need to be addressed and nurtured, as you said.
Yes. So I went into this relationship with somebody that I knew from school, and I really got swindled in this one. I really gave him the benefit of the doubt. And I've come out of the cognitive dissonance and the pull on the heart. And, I think the last time we spoke, I also couldn't put things into priority. It was very difficult for me to move through a day without breaking down and crying. I think I was crying every day for
Mhm.
2 months.
Mhm.
But that again is also another part of healing,
Right.
the being able to express yourself. And I think that's where I struggle, not just with the nonprofit, but general day to day. People are not really wanting to listen to other people's problems. So we keep suppressing all of these things. And this, obviously, your podcast is so important for that sharing to happen. But
Right.
we need
Nobody
to
wants to
also be
talk
able to
about it, but we
listen.
need to talk about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Talk and listen.
Yeah.
And what we listen to, and we're gonna discern what we're listening to on our phone just as much as the people that are in the same room as us, or friends that we go out and make an effort for. And so
Mhm.
I've had to put boundaries up. I've had to change the places that I go to, and it feels like an annual thing. And for me, my annual starts in February, March, not December.
Okay. Mine's always November. It's for my birthday. It's like that's my
Okay.
renewal, essentially. Yeah. Yeah. Um,
No, I was just going to say, give ourselves that freedom. It's about forgiveness, but also we are so adaptable as human beings. We can adapt in any environment, and we're proven that time and time again under stress and pressure.
I wonder how many times, you entering this last relationship that your intuition was screaming at you and you were like, no, no, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And you knew that. And how many times, as women, especially, that we are told to, no, it's all right, just push yourself, And there's an appropriate time to push yourself. And then there's an appropriate time not to push yourself. And how really getting quiet and getting to know yourself will help you listen to that intuition so much better. I mean, for my entire childhood on through adulthood, we're constant. Like I was always told, I'm too sensitive. You need to, not take things so personally and like all of those things. But the thing is I am a sensitive person and it's part of who I am because I loved so deeply. And so that's part of it. I actually just did a recent podcast with an anagram coach. And I did another one with an intuition coach, which those have been like eye opening as well. It's been a really cool experience because I'm getting to talk to, because of this podcast, I'm getting to talk to these people all over the world doing all of this great work and just receiving all of this information. So I'm really, really excited to be able to share that with everyone listening, as well as your story. And I'm so
Yeah.
appreciative of you coming on here and sharing it. I do want to ask, I want to end it with this like one last kind of thing. You mentioned alchemy. Can you define or describe what alchemy is? Because it's becoming kind of a buzzword of sorts, I would say. And maybe there's someone listening that doesn't really understand what it is or has no idea. Can you help us with that?
I have not studied how to transmute energy. I've had unique experiences in different parts of the world, but when I focus on the location that I'm going to at the moment, it's called Flamingo Heights. It's in a place called Lansdowne, and it's maybe the size of a quarter or less than the size of a rugby field. And it's got about 400 people living there, maybe more during the day, moving in and out. It's extremely poor, very toxic, gangsterism, crime, alcohol, drug dependencies, abuse, you name it. So when I first started going there, it really wasn't about pointing fingers or trying to teach anybody any hard lessons. It was about being consistent, being myself, speaking my truth, making eye contact, building relationships, and flowing with spirit within that space. I read a book called Down by the River Pedro. I sat down and wept, and that was also quite eye-opening when I think of who I am in that space. The book was showing me that I am this physical body, but I am also the other. And the other is compromised of the sensitive intuition and the compassion that's needed, the deep understanding of the human psyche, how people are willing to go so far down into self-neglect and with this lack of self-worth that I see. So alchemy happens for me over a period of time. My voice doesn't want to work. It's so sensitive because of my throat chakra and the abuse that I've experienced that there's a part of me that is still very, very scared to reveal who I know I really am. When we start talking about earth angels and the chosen 144 and that divine frequency and what that can do in an environment like Flamingo Heights, it is magic and miracles. It is spirit. It is God. It is omnipresent, omnipotent. I have the highest calling to do that. And I just so desperately wish that there were other people willing to step into that space with me.
That's beautiful. Wow. I want to thank you for being here today. But before we end, I want to ask you if someone could walk away from our conversation with one morsel, what would it be? What would you want them to take with them today after they've listened?
Don't ever be scared to speak your truth right from the beginning. If there's
Beautiful.
any niggle, follow your intuition. It knows, so you know.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Where can people find you to follow your work?
I'm Pamela Tosh on Facebook and Instagram, and my yoga name, Indie Pam, that's India Pamela. I'm also on YouTube. I have a LinkedIn account, and my website is indiepam.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Pamela, for being here. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, meeting you, and getting to know you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laura. Really appreciate it. God bless.
Pamela, thank you for sharing your presence, your wisdom, and the energy you bring into every space you enter. This conversation was such a powerful reminder that speaking our truth isn't just about using our voice, it's about honoring who we are at our core. If this episode touched something in you, take a moment to listen. Breathe. Ask yourself, what truth have I been holding back? If you want to connect with Pamela or learn more about her healing work, all of her links are in the show notes. Thank you for tuning into this episode. If it resonated, please share it. As always, I'm thinking of you and sending you love, and I will see you soon.